All right, so the last couple days we've been working on adding positive and negative numbers, and so I just want to summarize quickly just these number lines we've been drawing and rules that we've been working on so that we can start really putting them into action. So fill in your paper in front of you as I fill this page in front of me out. The opposite of a number is the same distance from 0. So the two numbers are going to be the same distance from 0 in the other direction. So you see that on this number line down below, and you can pause the video if you need some time to finish writing what I just wrote. But you see here an example of two opposite numbers, because here's 0, and we have the opposite of -9 over here is a +9, because it's the same distance from 0, but their arrows are going in two different directions. So if we would add two numbers that are opposites together, you are always going to get 0. We did that a little bit the past couple days because you're undoing what you just did. So that diagram, this diagram down here, shows the addition problem of 9 plus -9, which is then giving you 0 as an answer because we're going out 9 and then undoing that, essentially going backwards, doing the opposite to get back to 0. So below that is an example of when we add two numbers, and I want you to box on your paper with the same sign. When we do this, the arrows that represent them point in the same direction. They have the same sign, so the arrows are moving in the same direction. So if we put the arrows tip to tail, we see the sum has the same sign. So we're going to see that in action a little bit here. We're going to write a number sentence for this first example down here with green arrows. We see this first arrow goes from 0 to 4, so it's going to represent a +4. And then we see the second arrow goes from 4 to 7, so that is 3 units long. 1, 2, 3. So this number line is showing us that 4 plus 3 equals 7. We added two positive numbers. They both had the same sign, and our answer was positive, something that you would have learned in elementary school. The same thing is true even if the numbers are both negative. So we see down here in the red number line that we have our first arrow goes from 0 to -5, so represents -5. And then we have another arrow going in the same direction from -5 to -9. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 units long. So this problem shows us that -5 plus, and I'm using parentheses just to enclose that negative sign so we don't have two signs together. -5 plus -4 equals -9. We just added 5 and 4 together like we would add two positive numbers together, and we got a -9 as our final answer. So to find the sum, we just have to add the magnitudes, which is just a big word for the value of the number, and give it the correct sign. That's if the signs are the same, both positive or both negative. I think the trickier one is the last one, which is that when we have two numbers, and here's again, I want you to box it with different signs. Check it out, we're actually going to subtract their magnitudes or values because the arrows are pointing in opposite direction. And then whichever number has the larger magnitude, the larger value, that's the sign we give our answer. So for example, this first arrow is going from 0 to -5, so it is representing -5. This green arrow up on top, if we count how far it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm back at 0, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units long, and it's going in the opposite direction. So our math problem would be -5 plus 12 equals, well, what? Our arrows are going in two different directions, so I can't just add them together like I normally would and say, well, my answer is 17. This number line ends at 7. So how did that 7 come to be? This is where the subtraction comes. If you ignore the signs for a minute and look at the two numbers, 12 and 5, if we subtract them, we get 7. And then because 12 is our bigger value and it's positive, our answer will be positive 7. So that's just a visual to go with why our negative plus a positive gets us this positive 7. The positive number was bigger, so we went back past 0, but really we subtracted. We found the difference between the two numbers. So that's why this slide you created exists. Hopefully you've done this now in your Google Slides presentation. This shows you those two rules. When we're adding integers, we have a box that says when the signs are the same and when the signs are different. I'm showing you something you should already have seen before. And it says that when the signs are the same, we are just adding and then keeping the sign. When the signs are different, we're subtracting and then taking the sign of the bigger value with a couple examples there. So if you could flip the page in front of you over, we're going to run through a couple examples really quick just so you can hear a couple questions you should ask yourself as you look at a question in front of you. This first question is -3 plus -5. My first question would be, are the signs the same or are the signs different? Well, they're both negative numbers, so these have the same sign. So if I go back to my slides, I'm looking at this example. My signs are the same, so what do? It says to add the two numbers like you normally would and then keep the positive or negative sign. So, since these two are both negative, I'm going to keep a negative sign for my answer. I'm going to start there, and then I'm just going to add the two numbers. 3 plus 5, like I normally would, gets me 8. So my answer will be -8. The second problem here in front of us, we have -2 plus 7. So, are the signs the same or different? Well, this one's a negative number, and this one's a positive number, so my signs are different here. So when I look at my slide that we made, we're looking at this side now. My signs are different. So it says subtract the two numbers and take the sign of the bigger value. So let's start with the sign. You should be asking yourself, is 7 bigger or is 2 bigger? Well, the 7 is the bigger number, so my answer is going to be positive since the 7 is positive. Step 2 then says subtract the numbers, so ignore your signs, and now we're doing 7 minus 2. Since 7 is the bigger number, it should come first, and that gets me 5. So my answer to -2 plus 7 is a positive 5. Last but not least, we have 8 plus -12. We're going to ask ourselves the same question. Are the signs the same or are they different? Well, the 8 is a positive number, the 12 is a negative number, so my signs are different, which means I'm going back to my slide and looking at the signs being different. It says, again, subtract the two numbers by putting the larger number first and take the sign of the bigger value. So let's look at the signs first. We should be asking, is 8 bigger or is 12 bigger, just as a value? 12 is always going to be bigger than 8, and since the 12 is negative, my answer is going to be negative. And then I'm going to subtract the two values without any signs. 12 minus 8 gives me 4, so my answer will be a -4. You're going to work then on an assignment just practicing adding positive and negative numbers in this way. And we need to go carefully and slowly to make sure we're asking, are my signs the same or different, and which rule then am I following? So move on to the next step or the next thing in our agenda for today to be practicing these rules.